Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Justin Clements coming to you live from Clements News 101. Black votes are very important in the state of Georgia. Many people do not vote, surprisingly. Today, I have with my friend Kenneth Wright on how he feels about why black folks do not vote and why should it be voted.
I personally vote simply for the fact that I know for a while we haven't been able to vote. You know what I mean? It's a privilege that wasn't granted to us in the past, and quite recently, within the realm of maybe 100 or so years, we've been able to vote. And I feel that that practice is something that we should be able to cherish simply for the fact that we are Americans, we are African Americans, or rather, that I am African American. And I feel that it's an exercise that we should take part in. It's something that we fought for a while to get. So I personally vote simply for the fact, as I mentioned before, it's an important right to exercise as an American, let alone as an African American. But I find that if you don't vote, there's a sort of guilty conscience that's left with you. It's like, yeah, your vote's a drop in the bucket, but when it comes to the mind of a collective, everybody working together for a common cause, everybody putting in their opinions, it matters. Even though it may feel like it doesn't matter, your opinion does matter, and it's very important for that opinion to be heard in the collective. When you think about voting and you think about all of the negativity that's been drawn to it, all of the stuff that's been perpetuated in the media, um, blacks don't vote for good reason, as at least any reason that I can think of. There have been so many obstacles that have been put in place for African Americans to struggle to vote. There have been, I mean, but I just feel that in despite of all of the obstacles, the common theme is that we should overcome. The common theme is that we should strive to vote regardless of who or what system may be put into place to keep us down. So, as African Americans, I feel that it's a negative connotation. I don't think that African Americans shouldn't vote. I feel that regardless of what's put in place, we should strive to go and vote despite of.
We have a lot of elderly people that are exercising their right to vote. Today, I have with me Professor LaFleur of Albany State University who shared his opinion on why we should vote.
Is particularly important, and especially important here in the state of Georgia, particularly during this time now of so much ill activity, if you will, going on in terms of individuals not really participating or engaging in the process as they should.
Okay. And why do you vote? What's your reason for why you vote?
I think that for many individuals, some feel that it doesn't make a difference, but for me, I do feel that it does. Outside of those things, then outside of outright unrest and other activities, I think it's particularly important for us to try to do what we need to do via the law and the proper process of voting, getting things done, changed politically and with the law. Of individuals voting. So if that's something that's lost, many of the things that we enjoy, both in terms of general rights and privileges and opportunities, could potentially be lost. So young people should indeed do their part to continue that particular legacy.
What it is, but we are not recognized for making America great. But if you study your history, you'll see the backbone of African America building this country and making it great. And they did a splendid job. Go down on Pennsylvania Avenue and look at all those federal buildings that were built by our foreparents. He said, we do not have to step back for nobody. We earn a right to vote. We shouldn't have to die for the right to vote. The right to vote means everything for African Americans. Take advantage of it. Show them that you can't be bought. some African Americans being bought for money not to vote. He said, don't be naive, don't be ignorant. Voting is power, and take advantage of the opportunity while we have a chance. That made me think about, they don't care what happened. They don't care what happened in America, especially in Washington, in America, black people that don't vote, you don't have a voice. Whatever go on is okay with you. He said, but now that you're showing your ignorance by doing that, that's the way they want you to think, that your vote doesn't count. He said, we living in a modern time now, so we do not have a place for ignorance. So you have to take advantage of voting. He said, I've witnessed African Americans being shot down in cold blood in Detroit, Michigan, because they couldn't vote. When a person sacrificed their lives for what they believe in, we should take advantage of voting. All African Americans should vote, every one of us. That's what caused President Biden to get in office. That black wave elected President Biden in office. So we should always vote every opportunity, whether it's federal, state, or local. Take advantage of voting. You exercise your right, and it's your right to vote because you earned it. We haven't always could vote. Now that some of our African Americans have sacrificed their lives to vote, he said, why not vote? He said, voting is beautiful and it's powerful. He said, and don't be bought with your ballot. Let the people know that you are concerned about what goes on in Washington, whether it's on the federal level, state, or local level. Your vote counts. Don't be deceived or misled by ignorance. Study your history and know that you have earned a right to vote. And if you're not voting, vote. Go and register and vote. We do not want Donald Trump back in office. So the only way you're gonna keep him out is vote. Yeah, we've been mistreated a long time. And now it's our opportunity to shine. And we're gonna shine brighter and brighter and brighter because we gonna cast our vote. Because the black wave is what put President Biden in office.
Okay.
We wanna keep doing it.
So tell me now, how do you feel about the way the senators voted for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson? Did they vote the way they really feel, or did they vote based on their party?
Well, the Republican Party really tried to downgrade, tried to belittle Ketanji Jackson.
Man, this thing just get better and better, doesn't it? Now, to top it off, I have a special person who's going to share their opinion on why black people should vote. My very own mama. Her name is Clements, and she will inform you of why you should go out there and vote. Okay, so we are talking about voting. Why do you think voting is very important?
Voting is important because of one word, power. Voting means power. And you may ask, power to do what? Power that promotes real, living, substantiated change. Power grants us the right to elect officials that will go into federal offices, state office, and local offices to promote the change that the community needs. Not just one community, not just a specific community, but it promotes change many times for groups who live in communities that have been marginalized. People who have historically been, guess what, discriminated against. People who have been oppressed and depressed because of the law. We can now use voting as a way to promote change. Well, what kinds of changes? Changes that add more parks and recreation to our communities, because studies have shown, and it's been found, that when youth get involved and they have something to do, they're less likely to get in trouble, and they're more likely to stay in school. Well, historically, blacks or black communities have not always had the same resources, or let's just even say it this way, access to resources that other communities, such as white communities, have had for their youth. So with the power of the vote, that helps us promote the change, bring about the change that's needed for our communities.
Okay, that's a very good answer. I know Jim Crow has some effect on voting. So, what do you think their role was in terms of Jim Crow?
The Jim Crow era. Wow, we could say so much about the Jim Crow era. This was an era in our history, the history of the United States, that was set in place to oppress the black community. The Jim Crow era had been known to use intimidation, violence, even things like poll taxes and literacy tests to create barriers that would keep blacks from voting. There was even something that was called the grandfather clause. Now, what was the grandfather clause? Well, the grandfather clause stated that if your grandfather was not a voter, then you too by default could not vote. Now, let's be real. How many people who lived during that era had grandfathers? So we're talking about 2 generations prior to that, would be your parents' generations as well as your parents' generation, who had the right to vote. Not very many people. So that was a law that was put in place to what? To keep people from being able to vote. And if you can keep people from being able to vote, that means that that particular group of people or that race does not have the power, as we previously stated, it does not have the power to promote the change that was necessary to level the playing field, if you will. So let's just look at history. History shows us that when this country was founded and slavery was in place, a person had to be a white male property owner in order to vote. So that left out women of the white race as well as the black race, and it absolutely left out. Listen, we're talking about a black woman. So let's just go back a couple of decades. Black women had absolutely no rights. They were considered what? They were considered to be property of their slave owner. Here is an example. A black woman did not have the rights over her own body. Are you kidding me? There was no laws in place during slavery, the era of slavery, which has not been that long ago. I mean, we look at it and we think 1800s, 1900s, but in the big scheme of things, that was not a very long time ago. However, in the slavery era, a black woman had no rights protecting her from being raped by her slave owner. A white male literally could take advantage of a black woman sexually. I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there, sexually, and she had no rights about it. She didn't have the right to refuse him. She could not say no. She couldn't protect herself. Absolutely nothing. So my question would be, is if blacks were looked at as nothing more than the property of a slave owner, how then could that same property reproduce and create children if we were just property? No, we all know that we were, and always will be human, just like white people. Another example, white women would literally, this is history, look up your history. Google will tell you everything you want to know. Go to YouTube. There are videos out there, that pictures, photos that literally show black women nursing a white baby on one breast and their own black baby on another breast. And it was against the law. Listen to me and listen to me well. Make no mistake about it. It was against the law for the black mother who was nursing her own baby. The white baby had to nurse from one breast, and the black baby had to nurse from the other. What? Are you kidding me? I am told as a black woman what breast my own child that I bore can suck from. And it is against law. She could have been charged. She could have been killed if the slave owner found out that she was nursing her baby on the same breast as the white baby. That is ridiculous. But that was the life of a black woman. Are you kidding me? No, are you kidding me? Who does that? How is that lawful? How is it fair? But go back to what I just said. There were no laws in place that protected a black woman, and she did not have the rights over her own body. So that's why many times you see black women rallying for justice, rallying for different causes, because as black women and women of color, when we want to get something done, we get it done. We literally have played a significant role in the building of this country. I know there are groups of people right now who say that black people are lazy, the stereotypical, mom on welfare, loud, mad, angry. Well, you know what? We have a right to be angry. Yes, we do. And I said what I said because we have been discriminated against, we have been oppressed, we have been depressed. And now that women of color and African American women are, some of us, not all of us, because we're all different and we're not in the same place, but those of us who are taking a stand, who are making our voices heard, people want to use us for their platforms and for their causes. But many times we are now stepping up and saying, you know what? Not this time. We're sitting this one out. But this particular time, one of the most significant changes that I have seen as a woman of color is a woman of color, an African American queen, being nominated by the what? What are we talking about? The vote. She was nominated just barely by a vote to the highest court in the land. And because of the way the system is set up, she was almost kind of sort of guaranteed that if there had been a 50-50 vote, which very rarely happens, but let's just hypothetically say that there was a 50-50 vote. Well, guess who is the president of the Senate? Yes, it is Kamala Harris, Vice President, Madam Kamala Harris, and she would have broken the tie with the what? You guessed it, you know what I said, the vote. So that is one of the most significant changes that I have seen, progressive changes, is the judge, let's be clear, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson being nominated and appointed and voted the first woman of color to the highest court in the land.
That is very, very interesting, ma'am. We talked about voting so much lately. What do you feel about the fraud, very fraud that happened in the 2020 election?
Voter fraud. People, come on. Let's be honest. Let's sip on this tea. Now, historically, if we look at the history of this country, and I'm just going to be honest with you, I have struggled with whether this country is our country, whether it's been great, but you know what? This country was built off of the brow, the sweat, and the backs of blacks. Make no mistake about it. This country would not, in my opinion, one that I highly value, that's accurate, and that I respect. I said what I said. We are the reason America is great. If we want to call America great, it's great for one reason and one reason alone: black people. Just think about all of the inventions that black people have made. This country wouldn't be the same. Just to name a few, the inventions of blacks. You got the traffic light. Now imagine being right out here on Rating Springs Road without a traffic light. It would be constant and never-ending chaos. to the traffic light. Open heart surgery was first done by a black person. So let's just think about all the people whose lives have been saved by that just one. And we're not even talking about medical history as far as the contribution of blacks. We're just talking about voting. But just to imagine what this country would be like without black people. The refrigerated truck, you know you want your fresh fruit from Publix. You know you want your produce and you want your groceries and all the things from Publix. The refrigerated truck was created by a black person. So again, make no mistake about it. This country would not be great or as great as it is without the contributions and the brilliance, the black excellence, as we like to say, of black people. Now, do I believe there was voter fraud? No. What I do believe is that the party that historically has been in charge, in power and in control, they lost a significant amount of power. And let's be clear, they were mad. They got their bat and their ball and they went home. They gathered themselves together. They assembled and they have come up with all of these laws to practically secure the next presidential election to be in their favor. Well, why do I say that? Because they put things in place such as if they don't like a vote, they can just change it. They can. I have no idea what this next election is going to look like, but I do know that these midterm elections are coming up. So a lot of times we look at the president, you know, the highest office in the land, the commanding chief officer of the military as the highest office, and it is, but he does not hold ultimate power. You better make sure, and hear me clearly, that you are voting in your local elections, your city elections, because your city and your local elections affect what? State elections, and state elections do what? Affect national elections. So it starts in your local community. So please let me pause right here and let you sip on this tea, that you have no right to complain or say anything if you are not a registered voter. I'm sorry that I'm not sorry, but I meant what I said. If you are not registered to vote, I need for you to stop what you are doing right now and get your business straight. And as the old folks used to say, set your house in order. Because y'all, we are up against some serious agenda issues when it comes up to this next election. Because we all know that the Republicans are losing power, and they don't like that. They don't know what that's going to mean and what that's going to look like. They just know that the power that they once held, they no longer hold that power, because they would have never thought in a million years that there would be a black woman on the Supreme Court. When those gentlemen who sat down and penned the Constitution, who stated and said in the Declaration of Independence that what? In all of those documents that they created, they didn't have black people in mind. When they said all men are created equal, they weren't talking about us. But as my grandfather used to say, if it's written, it's fitting, and you can take what I said to the bank. If they knew that one day black people would fight for injustice and they would fight to have the equal rights, they would have written those documents differently, because they never thought that we would come into power. And now that we are, they're doing whatever they can think of to stop that, because it's predicted in the year 2035, if I'm not mistaken, that white people will be a minority. They will be. And that is, in my opinion, of course, none of this is anything but my opinion based on what I've read and what I've said. It's my opinion, but I do believe that they're looking forward, and white people play chess. If you know what that means, they play the long game. So they're looking a decade from now, and they're asking themselves, what is it that they need to do now in place in the year 2022 to secure and make sure that they are still in power? But baby, make sure you understand what I am saying, and I'm speaking to you clearly, that the power is in the vote. In my opinion, there was no voter fraud. It was a fair election, but because the outcome was different than that that they thought it was going to be, they want to yell voter fraud. But as long as they're winning, as long as they're being voted into office, we call it voter integrity. Oh, everything's done right. It's done by the law. This was done, that was done. But when you take that same series of processes and the vote is cast by the voters to vote for who they choose to vote for, then it's election fraud if they don't win. Make it make sense. There was no election fraud, but I'm going to tell you where there was fraud. In Washington, January 6th, 2021, you had a group of people who called themselves patriots. And they stormed the Capitol in the name of patriotism to kill people, to stop an election that was fair, secure, and sure, because they did not get their way. And was anything done to them? Yes, and some of them had some repercussions from that. But the fact that they were that bold and they were, in my opinion, that scared that their lives were going to change as the way they knew it and they would lose some of their privilege, caused them to literally go to our nation's capital with the purpose and the intent of doing harm or whatever they felt necessary to do to stop that election. Now, if it had been another way, if those people who stormed the Capitol looked like me, we wouldn't have had to worry about a committee to get together to go and check to see if this person granted access to someone to get into the Capitol. Those people would have been killed on the spot. And you know it, and I know it. So there was no election fraud, but there was an insurrection. And the people who say they are patriots and are willing to kill other people to have their way and to have their vote and to keep their power, in my opinion, they are the fraud. Not the voters, but the insurrection. Okay, let me get that word right. The people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th, they are the fraud. So, in closing, what is voting? Voting is power. Voting is access. Voting is a right that we all hold. And I encourage you that if you are not currently registered to vote in this next upcoming election, take the time to exercise your right. Take the time to make your voice heard. Take the time to make sure that you are using your power to get the things done that are important to you, to me, and our community.
Wow, I don't know. If you ain't going out there to vote, I would suggest you go out there and vote right now. But until next time, this is Justin Clements coming to you live from Clements News 101. Thank you and have a blessed evening.